This is my favorite episode now. No, this is my favorite episode now. This is my favorite episode now. Welcome back to the Ruby Tuesday. My name's Ruben, and this is my review for Season 3, Episode 7. Non-spoiler, of course, but we have had the embargo lift for Episode 7. So I'm here to talk about kind of what to expect, a little bit of a breakdown without going into any plot specifics. But I feel like every time I review one of these episodes, I feel like I'm saying, this is my favorite episode now. No, this is my favorite episode now. But wow, this is my favorite episode now. Anyway, let's jump into it. Episode 7 is called GOLDENEYES and it's directed by Ciaran Donnelly and written by Dave Hill. Perrin and the people of the Two Rivers are preparing for war as Badan Fain and his army of Trollocs threaten the vulnerable townsfolk. In a desperate attempt to protect his friends from imminent danger, Perrin forms an unlikely alliance, while Lowell takes a risky chance to prevent further catastrophe. So we don't actually get any other sideline stories for this episode. It is just about the people of the Two Rivers and Perrin's kind of leading the way of how to protect them. And that's when you cue the montage. We need a montage.
I think I know just what we need.
We're gonna need a montage. Ooh, it takes a montage.
There is a bountiful, plentiful 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes sequence of the townsfolk, getting their spears ready. We have some smithing. We have some talking about what to do, who's going to do what. It's a montage of preparing you to feel like that there is going to be a battle that's imminent. And this battle really has been brewing. We've seen little bits of Perrin and his journey in this episode and, with him and the Two Rivers coming to terms with what he is. But really, this is the battle. The battle sequences themselves are very well done. It is brutal. It is exactly like if you remember right at the beginning, even though that was mixed feelings for people of Season 1, when we had the Trollocs attack originally, you saw how brutal and scary they were. Now imagine them in much more numbers with a mix of whoever or whatever has guided them to this place. And so there's this mix of wondering what the hell they're doing, how they're going to survive. And then we get an interesting take on how exactly you protect a little town. Battle strategy. And that plays a very evident part in this episode. And I think it's shown visibly well. There's some stuff that's during daylight, a lot again during the night, but it's nothing like when you get a Game of Thrones episode at night and you can't see anything. No, you do get to see because it's lit by fires and, various townsfolk have lanterns, as well as seeing the one power being used in a different way. And again, it's something like I say every episode. This is the second time I've seen this episode and I keep coming back to little moments on each episode exactly how the one power is used. We are showed that it has a cornucopia of uses depending on its user. Beautifully, sometimes brutally. Again, this is one of those sequences where we've seen it used like this before, but not quite. And I really like that we're getting to see the little bits from the books. I mean, this is varying off from the books as well, but it is definitely taking moments and making its own. So I think if you've been along the ride because you're a book lover, but you're enjoying their take on it, then you will enjoy this. If you're still watching, kind of hate watching, I know some people are, then I think you'll probably continue to go. But that's not how it is in the books. I'm of two minds. I think the relationships that they've changed in this series are fine because they're doing their own thing. But I can still see the love from the books, from the characters here. And this is Perrin's story. We don't get any other stories in this episode except for that of parents and the group that is with him. I was surprised at how emotionally I was engaged with this episode because of the people I didn't know how I had come to care about. And when things happened to some of them, I was like, please don't let this happen. It's one of those when sometimes the writers will write protection values, like they're coding their characters and they're saying they're protected until they're not. It's like my grandmother always used to say, you're immortal until you're not. And unfortunately, there's going to be some cases in this episode where some characters are no longer immortal. and it's going to have an emotional impact, which good writing should do. So I think they've nailed that in making us care for some of the characters, but beautifully rendered in a way that's heroic and, what they stand for, not changing the characters' dynamic suddenly because they wanted to fit a certain way. Always go back to the last season of Game of Thrones, particularly the last couple of episodes where characters were suddenly doing the opposites of what we had known them to be, like just an opposite of their trait, which is really weird. So now, none of that is evident here, but our characters are still doing heroic things, but how their characters would act or how we've come to expect them to be, even though sometimes they need to break out of their shell and become the warrior that they know they can be. There are moments like that that are brilliant. Watching fight that is choreographed but feels brutally realistic as well, so it's not like gung fu or spear fu. There is a mix of real world element in a fantastical mix, because we have Trollocs, which are fantastical elements, we have magic, which is the one power, and we have all these different kind of characteristics from various species that intermingle here, but somehow has a grounded authenticity within the magics of the world. And I think that is a really tough balance to balance, but they do nail it with this episode. There's a couple of highlights in this episode. I think that will be for people. Some friends that we haven't seen for a while will be appearing in this episode, as well as a return to one of our favorite games, Fair Maiden's Kiss. I'm not going to say who that's been done with, but I enjoyed these moments, a little bit of levity for the intensity of the episode. A highlight again for me. So tune in again next week for episode 8, the final episode of season 3. Don't expect everything to be wrapped up. There are so many side stories that are going all over the place that we're just starting to get into. So let me know your thoughts and feelings on this season so far. I personally think they've hit the ground running with season 3, and they've just been getting stronger with each episode. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know who's your favorite character, but most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.